We are going to make a hazelnut and strawberry tart. And that tart is going to have an almond frangipane inside. It's actually going to be somewhere between a frangipane and an almond creme pâtissier. Because I don't use flour and because I don't use sugar, it is neither a frangipane nor a creme pâtissier. What we're going to do is we're going to heat some milk with a little bit of nutmeg. And when that has infused, we're going to whip it onto some almonds and egg together. We're going to return that to the heat, and we're just going to heat it a little bit more until it forms a custard before it will curdle. For the base, we are going to use hazelnuts together with a little bit of melted butter and 90% cocoa chocolate. Now this chocolate is one of my favorites. It's from Lindt. And it has carbohydrate of 14 grams. We're only going to use a very small amount of it in there, and that's going to be used to make the crust for our pie. To prepare our base, I've already buttered a pie dish. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of almond around inside in that, because making this chocolate crust, it can stick a little bit more readily to your base than if you're just using the nut crust, which I normally make. So that's nicely dusted. Just like this, it's ready to go. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator, and when we have our base made, I'll put the base into it later on. So for our custard, we put our milk and a little sprinkle of nutmeg, and we're just going to put that on to heat. And for our crust, we have 120 grams of butter, and we're going to melt that with 60 grams of chocolate. So that's our chocolate melted with our butter. Just stir and make sure that there are no pieces of chunky chocolate left. And when you're melting your chocolate with your butter, don't use a very strong heat. You can use like a medium setting on your microwave. It'll do a really nice job. If you want, you can melt it au bain marie, so that's in over a pot of water. I deliberately chose to use a plastic bowl so that I could put it into my microwave. So there we are. That's ready for the hazelnut. Mix it all in until it's all incorporated nicely. So remember, when we are preparing this pastry, basically this is a chocolate hazelnut pastry, but we choose the ingredients that we've chosen because we're not using any added starch and we're not using any added sugar. So the rules of normal pastry making don't really apply to this. So because everything is so, if you like, alien compared to normal pastry making, normal patisserie, don't expect to get the same result from your pie, and you can expect a couple of results that you're not really normally going to see. Like for example, when you cook this base, if you were to blind bake this base, which we're going to actually cook it with a custard in it, you could blind bake it, but if you were to bake this base, a little bit of butter is going to seep out through the bottom of the pie tin. So that's our pie base, reasonably well prepared. So if you were doing fine patisserie, you'd be making sure that the edges of your pie were a little bit thinner than my one here. But I'm using nuts. In this case I'm using hazelnuts. I usually use almonds for the side base, but because I wanted to do a chocolate base, I thought it would be nicer with hazelnuts. Either way, if you're using nuts compared to if you were making a regular pastry using flour, it's difficult to get the sides to be thinner than about 5 or 6 millimeters. If I was making a nice pastry base, I would ideally like it to be about 3.5 millimeters, maybe 4 millimeters. Okay, so that's the base ready for the custard. So we're going to put this into the refrigerator just to let it chill down a little bit. So our milk has infused with the nutmeg. we're going to put a little drop of almond essence, 1 teaspoon. And we're going to put some sweetener. And as I always say, you can use as little or as much sweetener as you prefer, whatever you like yourself. So that's our almond custard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to return that to the pot. And before I return it to the pot, I'm going to measure in 50 ml of fresh cream. We're going to cook that, stirring it carefully on a low heat until it thickens up just like pastry cream. Right, so our creme pâtissier has come off the heat and it's cooked without being curdled. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in 25 grams of protein powder. This is vanilla protein powder. So any protein powder that you can get that has very low carb content or no carbs. The carb content on this is 3.5%. So I'm going to put in 25 grams of that protein powder into our creme pâtissier. So the idea would be that rather than putting flour in, the thing that's going to help to bind and stick our creme pâtissier together will be that protein powder. And that looks very good. What I'm going to finally do is I'm just going to use the wand blender on it for a moment. Have a little taste. That tastes really nice. So we're now ready to pour it into the pie base. So my oven is preheated to 200 degrees. I'm going to reduce the heat to 170. And I'm going to cook this for 45 minutes at 170 degrees. And then I'm going to leave it to cool. And when it cools, I'm going to arrange some strawberries on top, and I'm going to glaze those strawberries. This is it, just out of the oven. Okay, so we have our tart and we have removed it from its ring. We have it sitting on its original base that it was baked on. And we have our strawberries on top. So this tart is good to eat. It's good to go right now. It doesn't need anything else. It doesn't need any other attention. You can eat it just as it is. However, what I like to do is I like to put a little bit of lemon syrup on top. And then I like to glaze it. And you can use a gelatine glaze. You can use jelly if that's what you want to do. I do have a sugar-free glaze there that I am going to use. But first I'm going to I have a little bit of some boiled lemon pieces there. And that makes a what I call a lemon stock. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain that. I'm going to sweeten it a little bit. And then I'm going to put it onto our strawberry tart. Don't need a whole lot. You can see there's probably about 80 or 100 ml, maybe 100 ml there. So I'm going to just taste that syrup and make sure that it's just right. That's fine. Very good. We're good to go again. I'm going to use my turkey baster to just distribute the lemon stock. We call it, actually it's a stock syrup, but it's a sugar-free stock syrup. So for me, in my mind, that's more of a stock than a syrup. Distribute it nice and evenly all around. And one good reason to do this is, as I've mentioned in some of my other videos, when you make desserts that don't have sugar, they often tend to dry out quite quickly. So if you're going to make a pie like this and you're going to finish it all today, then that's not a problem. But if you've got a couple of slices left over, by tomorrow they might not be so moist. So putting stock syrup on, or some kind of a syrup like this, is often a good advantage. And again, it's good to go now. You can put it right in the fridge if you want. I have a glaze that I sometimes use. So this is called 0 calories maple flavored syrup, and it doesn't have calories, but it does have quite a lot. It has quite a lot of artificial ingredients, which I don't like, and I prefer not to use. But because it gives such a nice shine and it makes things appetizing, I think a little bit is okay. Now if this gets mixed with your lemon juice will cause it to separate, cause it to dissolve. So you want to be careful not to mix it in with the lemon juice, or you can wait until the lemon juice seeps into the pie if you want before you put this on. But you can see it does give quite an attractive glaze. So I'm doing it for the glaze, I'm not doing it for the flavor. Ready to go, ready to use, ready to eat, with a dollop of cream or some ice cream, or just the way it is.